Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too, because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. In the heart of Willow Bend Drive, a quiet suburban neighborhood in Dallas, Texas, the air was thick with tension. For years, Patricia Vaughn, the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association, HOA, ruled the block with an iron fist. Her clipboard was her scepter, and her rules were law. But tonight, everything was about to change. Thomas Green, a 42-year-old project manager, had just endured a grueling 12-hour workday. All he wanted was to pull into his garage, kick off his shoes, and sink into the comfort of his living room couch. But as he pressed a button on his garage door opener, he was met with an unexpected sight. A pristine white SUV parked inside his garage, taking up the space that belonged to his gray Ford F-150. His heart raced as he stepped out of his truck, confusion washing over him. Who would dare to park in his garage? The answer was clear as he spotted the Texas license plate with a vanity tag that read HOAPWR. It belonged to Patricia Vaughn, the very woman who had made his life a bureaucratic nightmare. "Patricia," he exclaimed, disbelief lacing his voice. "What is your car doing in my garage?" Patricia strolled up, her floral blouse bright against the evening sky, a manila folder clutched under her arm. "Oh, Thomas, you're home sooner than I thought. I just needed a place to park for a few minutes. The landscapers are blocking my driveway, and I couldn't be late for a board meeting." Thomas's confusion morphed into anger. "You parked in my garage? Patricia, that's trespassing." She waved her hand dismissively, her tone dripping with condescension. "Don't exaggerate. It's just for a moment. You're always so reasonable at the meetings." "Reasonable?" he echoed incredulously. "You broke into my garage. This isn't about being reasonable. It's about respect." Patricia's smile faltered, but she quickly regained her composure. "Let's not create drama, Thomas. I'll move the car in a minute." But Thomas had reached his breaking point. He pulled out his phone and pressed a button to close the garage door, sealing her SUV inside. "Your little stay is going to stay right where it belongs, off my property." Patricia's eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't do that." "Watch me," he replied, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. For the first time, he felt empowered against the tyranny that as the garage door thudded shut. Patricia stood in the driveway, gaping. "Open that door right now. My car is in there." "Your car is in there because you put it there." Thomas shot back, his voice steady. "Now explain to me why you thought this was okay." Patricia's cheeks flushed with anger. "I didn't have time to wait for the landscapers. I have important meetings to attend." Their argument drew the attention of neighbors, who began to emerge in their homes, curious about the commotion. Janice Fuller, a retired nurse, stepped onto her porch. "What's going on?" Patricia parked her car in Thomas's garage. Someone shouted. Janice raised an eyebrow. "What was it doing in there?" Patricia's facade began to crack as she stammered. "I just needed a spot for a moment." "Patricia, that's not how this works," Thomas interjected. "You can't just use my garage like it's a public lot." The crowd murmured in agreement, sensing the shift in power. For years, they had endured Patricia's overreach, her petty fines, and her relentless enforcement of rules that only serve her interests. But now, they were witnessing a stand against her authority. "Enough is enough," Thomas declared, his voice rising above the murmurs. "You've bullied us for too long, and tonight, we're not backing down." Patricia's confidence wavered as she realized the tide was turning against her. "This is harassment," she shouted, but her words fell flat. "Harassment." Robert Martinez chimed in, stepping forward. "You're the one who broke into his garage." The crowd erupted in agreement, their voices rising in solidarity. Patricia's face turned crimson as she realized she was losing control. "You're all siding with him," she cried, desperation creeping into her voice. "Because you've crossed the line." Janice shot back. "You can't lecture us about rules when you just broke the biggest one. Respect your neighbor's property." The tension in the air was palpable as the crowd rallied behind Thomas. They had been waiting for someone to stand up to Patricia, and now that someone was him. "Let's hold a meeting," Thomas suggested, his voice steady. Not one of Patricia's meetings, but a real meeting where we can discuss her actions and decide what to do next. The crowd erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted by the prospect of change. Patricia's eyes widened in horror as she realized her reign was crumbling. "You can't do this," she shouted, but her protests were drowned out by the voices of her neighbors. Officer Lewis, who had been observing from a distance, stepped forward. "Ma'am, you've lost the trust of your neighbors. This isn't just a parking issue. It's about accountability." Patricia's shoulders slumped as the weight of the moment settled over her. "I've dedicated years to this neighborhood," she protested weakly. "By bullying us," Thomas countered, "you've used your position to intimidate and control. It's time for change." As the crowd rallied behind Thomas, Patricia's power slipped further away. "I'll take this to the board," she threatened, but her voice lacked conviction. "Go ahead," Thomas replied, his tone unwavering, "but we'll be ready for you." The evening air buzzed with excitement as neighbors began to exchange ideas for new leadership. Patricia's face twisted in anger and despair, realizing she was no longer in control. Finally, she turned her SUV, her pride shattered. "You'll regret this," she shouted as she climbed inside, but the words fell hollow as she backed out the driveway. The crowd parted silently, watching her leave. The officers nodded to Thomas, acknowledging his restraint and the power of the moment. "Tonight, we reclaim our neighborhood," Thomas said, his voice steady. "No more living under a thumb." The crowd erupted in applause, their voices echoing down Willow Bend Drive. For the first time in years, they felt united, ready to take back their community. As the night wore on, Thomas stood among his neighbors, feeling a sense of hope. They had faced down a bully together, and in doing so, they had rediscovered the strength of their community. But just as the celebration began to swell, Patricia's voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding. "You think this is over? You have no idea who you're dealing with." The crowd fell silent, tension crackling in the air as Patricia stepped out of her SUV, her eyes blazing with fury. "I'll make sure you all regret this. You think you can just overthrow me? I've been the backbone of this neighborhood." Thomas stepped forward, his heart racing. "You've been a tyrant, Patricia. And tonight, we're done with your reign." The crowd murmured in agreement, but Patricia wasn't finished. "You'll see. I'll take this to the county. You'll all be sorry." As she turned to leave, Thomas called out, "You can threaten us all you want, but we're not afraid anymore." The atmosphere shifted, and the crowd began to rally behind Thomas, their voices rising in unison. No more Patricia. No more tyranny. Patricia's face twisted in rage as she realized she was losing control of the narrative. "You think you can just band together and take me down? I'll expose all of you." But the crowd was undeterred. They had found their voice, and they were ready to stand together against her. As the night deepened, the stakes grew higher. The battle for Willow Bend Drive was just beginning, and Thomas knew that this was only the first chapter in a much larger story. And just as the crowd began to chant Thomas's name, Patricia's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at it, her expression shifting from anger to something more calculating. "You think this is a game?" she sneered, her voice low and dangerous. "I have connections. You'll regret crossing me." The crowd fell silent, the tension palpable as they awaited her next move. And in that moment, Thomas realized that the fight for their neighborhood was far from over. The stakes had never been higher, and the outcome was uncertain. But one thing was clear. They were ready to stand together, no matter what Patricia had in store for them next. Do you want to know the fate of the heroes? Please post part 2. Subscribe to the channel and continue watching. Your opinion and support are important to me. Leave it in the comments. Thank you.